Hi ladies, I hope you're doing well. This week is a special week. It's Black Maternal Health Week. And what that means is that all week, people around the country are going to be focusing on the crisis, because when I say crisis, it's a crisis. And this crisis is impacting specifically Black women in our country, the United States, when it comes to pregnancy, childbirth, and the postpartum period, which typically lasts a full year after your child's birthday. Now, I put a video on YouTube last week, and it was addressing what I believe is a major factor contributing to the Black maternal health crisis, and I think the maternal health crisis overall, and debatably the infant mortality crisis that is also happening in this country. So this video is going to be a little choppy because I had to use a different microphone in order to film that video. It's kind of weird to have this big bulky microphone on those videos. If you guys don't mind, let me know, because I like the quality of this much better. And I'm trying to figure out how to streamline some of my YouTube videos into my podcast, because why would I do more work? Come on, somebody. All right. So anyway, just wanted to give you that warning before we get into the episode. I apologize for the sound. I'm working on it. I'm getting better every day. So yeah, let's get into the episode.
We're chronically exhausted as residents, right? Because we work a lot. So it's not normal. And then, to add on top of that, the complexity of dealing with human lives and critical decision making and operating and things like that. And
do you remember when you were a kid and you had a big test coming up? And so your parents gave you this advice to finish studying and then go to bed early so that you got nice rest. And then in the morning, you ate a good meal and were ready for the test. Well, what if I told you that the people that are the most responsible for keeping us alive in this society actually don't follow that very simple advice? Now, the thing is, it's actually not anything new. We all kind of know this, especially in our country. We know that they have to go to college, and that typically means 4 years of undergrad. And then after that, they have to go to medical school, and then they go to residency and sometimes fellowship. And so we know that doctors are in school for a long time, but we often don't know the extent of what is happening in those programs. Now, we see hints here and there, maybe from a family member who's done it, or we ourselves go through the process. But something that I'm finding, especially when it comes to the world of childbirth, is that we often put all of our faith in these doctors, and that often leads to major problems with the woman and the baby. A lot of birth advocates will just blame doctors and hospitals and say everything that they're doing is wrong, and that very well may be the case. But something that I'm personally coming around to is this idea that doctors are people, right? I guess I already knew that, but they are people, and there has to be a reason why this stuff is happening. The data shows that there are harms happening to women, especially Black women. And in the news recently, we continuously see this idea of Black maternal health. But what is happening? We can say that it's racism, but I don't believe that the majority of people in the healthcare setting are racist. I just can't choose to believe that in 2024 in America, that the bulk of the harm that is being caused to women and Black women specifically is due to racism. So today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of what happens when you go into medical school, specifically for OBGYNs who are in medical school and residency, and some of the outcomes of the type and style of training that they're receiving, specifically in our country, and how that affects women and their babies through pregnancy and childbirth. In order for me to prepare for this video, I did a couple of things. The first thing is that I looked at a bunch of research as it pertains to OBGYN residency and the things that students can experience in that process. I also looked at the research on the mental well-being of these residents And I took some time looking at the med influencers on YouTube. There are several of them. A couple of them are specifically OBGYNs in their various years of residency. And then I also took a look at some of the full-fledged, like, attending OBGYNs. So I learned a bunch in this process, and it helped me to really further understand how specific problems can come up. And they really have nothing to do with nefarious or sinister plots created by doctors. So we're going to go through each one of those. And then at the end, I'm going to kind of wrap it up and talk about what that means for women in the healthcare system, specifically when they're going through childbirth. And of course, Black women, because this is a major area of concern. And when it comes to, what seems like constant streams of Black woman death in childbirth or, pregnancy overall, and also just the morbidity that comes with it as well. So morbidity basically just means the sometimes irreparable damage that occurs in the body. It could be like a surprise hysterectomy or just like changes in your body that you'll never come back from after giving birth. Something that I continuously think about in looking at these videos is that these are real people. I think they all equally enjoy and want to help. I think that they are in a very different reality than what many people are in. And what I mean by that is that when I'm watching some of the videos of the students and like interacting with patients or talking about their interactions, they often are excited about something that I would deem difficult. For example, one of the doctors was talking about doing a C-section on a first-time mom. I don't celebrate C-sections in general because I think they're overdone. I think the rate of C-section should be somewhere between like 5 and 10%. In most hospitals, it's at like 40%. Some of them are pushing like 50%. So that means that half of the patients in the hospital are getting C-sections. In normal physiological, like healthy births, there should not be a need for that rate of C-section. So obviously there's things going wrong, but these doctors or residents typically are celebrating, getting to do it themselves. Like they want to learn, their students. And so they're excited to be able to do these surgeries. Actually, obstetrics, so like OBGYN is actually a surgical field. So many of them said that they actually joined this field because they enjoy doing surgery. Like they like doing stuff with their hands. So they look forward to the surgeries. And one of them said that it was going to be an easy surgery because it was a first-time mother and she doesn't have the scar tissue that a repeat C-section would have.
About to go in for the second C-section of the day. This one is a brand new mama. This is her first pregnancy, so it's going to be her first C-section as well. And so it should be easier. In the last one, it was a repeat C-section, so she had some scar tissue, but everything went fine. And the attending let me close the skin, and he said it was actually really good.
And again, she means no harm in this, but for the general population, a woman who is going to give birth for the first time, I'm sure she's not necessarily planning to have a major abdominal surgery and not go through the natural process of giving birth vaginally. So just things like that, where I can just tell that although they mean well, their reality is very different from our own, and that can cause many issues. So now from the beginning, and this is something that most people generally know, medical students already become sleep deprived and overwhelmed. It's something that happens right away. You can find plenty of videos where the med students are overwhelmed, they're nervous, they're anxious, they don't get any sleep. Once they start to go into the clinic and the hospital and get that hands-on experience, they're sometimes working 26 hours at a time while still doing their coursework. The burnout that they experience is extreme, and that is in the first 4 years of their training. They're drinking coffee left and right. I mean, there's this one video where I saw a girl had energy bars, like 2 of them that she packed per day, plus coffee that she drank just to stay awake for these long hours of work. As I said in the beginning, what do we know about this? Let's look at the data on this we know just anecdotally, based off of what I said in the beginning of this video, that getting good quality sleep and eating healthy and taking care of your body is going to set you up for success when it comes to learning and being successful with whatever you're setting yourself out to do. And we're already ignoring that. So let's take a look at some of the information around how sleep deprivation, for example, can impact performance and mental flexibility and problem solving and honestly mood. All right, so I'm on the Sleep Foundation website, and this graphic is actually pretty impactful. It says sleep plays a significant role in almost every system of the body. Insufficient sleep increases risk in all of these symptoms. Consequences of sleep deprivation include the following. We have mental health disorders, diabetes, obesity, pain, immunodeficiency. This one really stands out to me, impaired mental function. One of the most noticeable effects of sleep loss is cognitive impairment. As sleep depth grows, a person becomes less alert and may have difficulty multitasking. Reductions in attention may make a sleep-deprived person more prone to mistakes, increasing the risk of workplace and motor vehicle accident. Wow. Okay, like that doesn't get more clear how important sleep is. But something that really stood out to me was as the sleep debt grows. So we know that medical students are in school for sometimes 8 to 10 to 12 years. And throughout that time, especially in residency, when they're doing a lot of hands-on procedures and working with actual patients, they are sometimes working 80 hours, having 28-hour shifts, just extreme sleep deprivation for sometimes years. And as that sleep debt grows, we're going to see more and more cognitive impairment. So it begs the question, how capable are these, specifically students? Because there are plenty of training hospitals in the country. I think there's like somewhere around 400 to 500 locations where there's actual medical students and residents working with patients in the country. So it just begs the question, like when they tell someone that they're safest in the hospital to deliver their baby, is that really true all the time? Even the most capable, intelligent, effective person without sleep is going to be prone to mistakes, prone to impaired judgment, perhaps slower if nothing else. And I want you guys to take a look at this video because it was something that stood out to me as alarming.
So tired, you guys. I am so tired. Your girl's really tired. I am so tired, you guys. I am so tired. I am very tired. I was so tired. I am so tired to the point where I do not feel well. Like I just feel sick, like nauseous and very lightheaded. I was like on the verge of passing out while I was delivering a patient, which was pretty scary.
I really appreciate Rachel because she's giving a glimpse into this world that we really would never see if someone wasn't willing enough to kind of showcase this. So this is not an attack on her. I fully believe, based off of her videos that I've seen, that she really cares about her patients and she wants to do well. And she's just pushed to the max. Like, she says she's exhausted and tired all the time, and she's trying her very best. And I think a lot of those residents out there are trying their best, but it's just an inhumane system.
Sleep is obviously very important to us in our bodies, and so not having enough of it is really not good. I get it, like if you're well rested, those are very easy things to do, but when you're really tired, it becomes a lot more difficult. Humans need to sleep.
And this system is a place that they want us to go and give birth in. This is a system that's asking women and babies to put their entire lives in their hands. And yeah, it just scares me that this is a reality. That's more of the reasoning and cognitive ability side of how these residents and students are being impacted by their training program. But something else that's more insidious and I think deserves more attention is their mental well-being. Now, there's actually a study that was done fairly recently, And I want to go through this because, wow, the numbers are alarming. And when you think about what these people are experiencing, it's not surprising the kind of things that happen to mothers and babies when they go into these systems. So let's look at this article. It's called Obstetrics and Gynecology Resident Wellbeing, Findings from a National Survey. This was done by a Dr. Ford and colleagues. So purpose. The aim of this study is to explore the well-being of obstetrics and gynecology residents and determine whether patterns observed among trainees have persisted despite changes both within and outside of the clinical learning environment. Now, I won't go into, what they did. You guys can look it up on their own. But what they found is alarming to me. So of the 3,741 participants, the rate of burnout was 64%, almost 65%. So more than half of them felt burned out. Now, depression was 57%. So also more than half of them feel depressed. Anxiety was even higher, 70%. I wonder if all that caffeine has something to do with it as well. But 70% of people who are supposed to be working with women and babies in the most natural, normal part of their life feel anxious. Is that something that we should focus on more? Can you guys let me know in the comments what you're thinking so far? Because when I read these stats, it was alarming. Something else that at least 147 residents felt was ideation. So, wow, these are people that are actually here to bring life into the world, and they're considering taking their own lives.
It's really unfortunate that residency training should be really optimized to focus on the residents learning their education, becoming the best possible attending physician that they can be. But money rules the world. Focusing on mental health is really, really a top priority, because if that isn't right, then everything else that follows is going to be compromised. Your ability to learn, and then depending on the severity, eventually all the way to compromising your care, right? So we should be caring a lot about this, because how doctors are doing directly influences how we as patients receive care, but systemic issues.
I just found it to be mind-blowing. I mean, I have always been on the side of people who don't agree with the medical system. I had my baby at home without any medical care at all. And I don't necessarily advise that for everyone, but I was so fed up with the way that the system goes that I just didn't want to be a part of it at all. And I didn't necessarily make them a boogeyman, but I definitely just couldn't be a part of it. And so that was eye-opening for me and very humanizing for the doctors in that case, because before that point, I was just like, why are they doing this? But when you hear stats like most of the residents, and especially like women, especially the female or the women, were 140% more likely to have ideation. It's just, wow. I mean, yeah, it really makes you think twice about the system. And then it begs the question, are we safer with them? Now, again, not taking away from their ability, how intelligent they are, the training and all that stuff. But when we're dealing with people who are sleep deprived and, pumped full of caffeine, who are pushed to burnout, and then also have these very significant mental health challenges, are we in the best hands? I've talked about many things, and something that I think is important to point out is that when these medical students are transitioning to residency, they're not going to home births. They're not doing birth centers. I mean, maybe some of them are, but they're only going into the hospital system to learn what birth looks like. So if the system is set up where birth is very medically managed, with things like Pitocin and inducing and, various medical interventions, they are not given an opportunity to learn what normal birth looks like without intervention. So if they go to a hospital where all of the doctors use heavy forms of intervention, well, they're just going to go and learn that, especially under the circumstances that they're under, sleep deprivation, all of these classes and tests and all this stuff that they're doing. Do you think that they're using any form of intuition? Are they using any clinical judgment, or are they just trying to do exactly what they've been told to do so that they can be successful in whoever's eyes that are grading them, right? Like, what are the chances that they're utilizing any actual intuition? They probably don't have even time to allow themselves to connect to their patients because they also have so many patients, right? Like, one doctor said that it was a slow day because she had 9 patients. When you think about midwives, for example, if they're at a birth, they're just with that one patient, right, for the whole time. And often doctors are sitting outside of the birth space looking at the fetus, the baby and the mother on a monitor, not actually in person. All of that kind of comes into play when thinking about how women and babies are impacted by this. I want to acknowledge that obviously not everyone is being treated by a resident or a medical student. Like, they eventually graduate and become full-fledged like attendings and doctors. I know that, but if that was their experience in training, what do you expect from them once they're done? Like, would you expect them to drastically change, or would they continue to proliferate what they're already doing? Right? Like, I would expect them to do what they already learned to do and just continue to do it more often without someone telling them to do it. Of course, there are doctors that stray and start to use more of their intuition and their judgment, outside of what they've been trained. But I would see them as the exception to the rule. All right, this is a little more personal. So what does this mean for women, and especially Black women who are entering this world? Well, if you have people who are kind of pushed to extremes and not fully mentally there, whether it be because of just like sleep or, their mental health, can you really expect them to be as sensitive as maybe a Black woman might need? I know there are a lot of advocates out there that are saying we need to pay closer attention to Black women when they're pregnant and going through the labor process. And if there's someone who is having trouble with attention because of the things I've said before, are they really capable of doing that effectively the way that we need them to be? The same thing is true for, sensitivity overall in this very sensitive time. Someone who is experiencing depression and anxiety is not necessarily going to be able to come out of their own self, like their own issues, and always put that aside for someone else and like really hold space for the birthing woman. Again, there are always exceptions to the rule. But I would say that the rule is if there are anywhere between 40 and 70% of residents who have these issues, then we really need to take a closer look at what these doctors are capable of providing to women. Something else that I want to mention is that when thinking about medical professionals who are experiencing things like anxiety, this is very problematic when it comes to handling birth. Because anxiety usually comes out of a false sense of fear. So you're fearing a lot of stuff. And when it comes to birth, which again is supposed to be a natural, normal process, women have been doing it forever, we don't need fear. But if we have medical professionals who are making fear-based decisions, they'll likely do more than what they need to do. They may even like hyperbolize or like make things worse than what they actually are. And it's because they're making decisions from this fear-based mentality. And we have the data that shows that 70% of OBGYN residents are experiencing anxiety. Now, I want to believe that it goes away when they become attendings, but it just doesn't seem likely. I mean, even if 50% of them stop, there's still 20% of them that have this anxiety that is continuing on with them. Okay, so I hope that this has given more insight into maybe a world that we don't really talk about a lot and maybe put some things into perspective. Please let me know what you guys think about this video in the comments. I know when I learned some of these things, it was both comforting and terrifying at the same time. So I'm very curious to know what others have to say about this. I don't think that we're helping the maternal health crisis at all, and definitely not the maternal mental health crisis, and definitely not the Black maternal health crisis. So there are some things that need to change, and I'm not saying that I know the answers to them, but I do feel like a big part of this is the way that we train our doctors. I don't think we need to get rid of doctors. I think that there's definitely a place, especially in the world of obstetrics, because they do save lives in many cases, but we just need to figure out how to make it better for them and ultimately better for us.